All right, there's my name, email address. If you do need to contact me ever, email is the best way to do it. I very rarely am in my office and at my phone. If you leave me a voicemail, typically that takes me longer to get back to you than if it's an email, because I can pretty much email you from wherever. So if you do need to contact me, do it by email. Our class meets from Mondays and Wednesdays, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and we'll meet in this room. Thank you. Typically, we're going to start class pretty close to 11 o'clock. The way it's going to work is that we'll come in. I'll typically have a lecture for you going over what we're going to cover for the day, and then you'll work on it. And if we need a second lecture for the day, sometimes I break it up, then we'll do that. A lot of times I'm going to have stuff recorded outside of class to use as the main thing, and just at the beginning it'll be more of like an overview or kind of like a process of what we're going to be doing, okay? For the class, your required materials, you'll need a note-taking book, a sketchbook, and a writing utensil. Everything that we do for this class is going to have some element of planning involved in it. So you will need to have some sort of sketchbook to kind of sketch out your ideas. Somebody asked in the last class about sizing. I like something that's portable. So if you have like a 6x8 or 4x5 or something like that, it's a good size. If you have like a sketch wallet or you have something like portable, it's great. If you have one of those huge ones, which for some reason people like to use, you could, it's just not easy to take around with you. Also, you'll need to take notes, so you will need some sort of notebook to take notes with. And then a writing utensil, obviously, to write stuff down. The files for this class should be no more than 32 gigabytes. You'll find that 3D is very different than probably anything else we've ever done before. If you work in Photoshop, typically you're dealing with one file that you're working with the entire time, or Illustrator, one file you're working with the entire time. In 3D, we work with one file, but we feed all these other files into it, and then we export that out to a whole bunch of files. So we'll use a lot of space in this class, okay? You can use one of those thumb drives, like these ones here. You can get by with this as long as you're transferring your files back and forth. But I wouldn't work off of these, okay? If you have a standalone hard drive that you could plug in that's self-powered, those are better if you do want to work off of it. The computers in here are not protected, so that if you were to save something to the drive and you come in next class, it could just be gone. Somebody could just wipe that file away. So you do want to make sure you're responsible for all of your files, making sure everything's backed up. Same thing with our servers. Anything you put on the server could be just eliminated. So it's on you to make sure you backed it up to your hard drive, and then when you go home, I would even back it up there in case you lose your hard drive or it gets corrupted or something. A pair of headphones is required too. Because I record all my lectures, they have audio. You can't get by just watching where I'm clicking with my mouse and clicking with your mouse. That's not how you learn. That's how monkeys learn, okay? You will need at least 4 hours outside of class to do work. Tonight I'm going to give you some homework to do. Next class you'll have some homework to do. Typically every class you should have some kind of homework that you're working on for the next class. That also includes if we get to, let's say we're building a room, which is our first big project. You only get to half the room and you need to finish it up before next class. Well, you have that time outside of class to finish it up, okay? So make sure you have at least 4 hours or more outside of class to make sure you do your homework and keep up on the assignments. Professionalism and desire to learn are required. Recommended materials, any Cinema 4D or generic 3D book. 3D is one of those fields that branches a lot of different areas. So today, or in this class, we're using Cinema 4D. That software is used mainly for motion graphics stuff. People do use it for modeling and animation and all this other stuff, but motion graphics is typically where it's at. Other 3D softwares have their strengths. Maya is another software tool that we use. That one's used more for like movie stuff. ZBrush is used for sculpting things. Any of those 3D concepts from one software will translate to any other software. So any generic 3D book is good to have just so you can kind of page through it and see what's available, because your world is like, our world is like this in 3D and you're like this tiny dot that's on there, okay? So the more you can kind of expose yourself to things, the better off you're going to be when you get to that point where you're like, I need to know how to make grass. How do I make grass? And instead of you trying to model each grass blade or doing something totally off the wall, you may have seen a tutorial a year ago that kind of went over that process, okay? So I recommend any of those. You don't have to buy a book. Believe it or not, your libraries have them. Even Amazon has 3D books, generic 3D books. here's one for Blender, which is like 50 bucks. This is $15. So you can get these pretty cheap through here. How to make money with 3D printing. Boom, that's a good one. You know, lots of stuff, okay? In the library, like I said, they have Maya books, they have cinema books, they have random 3D books. And if you can find one, great. If you have something on the weekend where you can just kind of page through it and then return it on Monday, you know, as long as you've kind of seen the information, it's still in your brain somewhere. It's just a matter of recalling it at some point. I also recommend getting a Pluralsight account. I assume coming into this class that you have touched Photoshop in the past and have a little bit of competency in Photoshop. If you're unfamiliar with Photoshop or you don't remember any of the stuff from your previous classes, you definitely want to get a refresher on that information. Pluralsight is a great resource, not only for students, but also for industry professionals. This is an area where once you've graduated, you're in the field and they say, hey, I need a logo designed by Monday morning, and you've forgotten how to design logos. They have 3 or 4 classes on designing logos, okay? You need to know how to do Illustrator. You can jump to one of their Illustrator paths and get like a crash course in Illustrator in 12 hours, okay? So from, I think I have it on here. It used to be at our bookstore. They may still have some. Eastern Michigan's website, their bookstore, you can buy stuff through also. It's about 170 bucks for the year, and you get access to all of the information that they have. So anything Cinema 4D related, Maya related, plus a whole bunch of stuff, Photoshop, Illustrator, web pages, photography, video, everything you could even imagine. Even if you don't get it for this class, before summer hits or when summer hits, it's a good idea to get that so you have something to continuously work on. If you haven't already caught on, if you don't use these skills all the time, you will forget stuff, okay? We will be using Adobe CC, mainly Photoshop, Illustrator, After Effects. We'll be using Cinema 4D for this class as our main 3D tool, and we'll be dipping into a software called Keyshot for a couple projects. The Adobe software you can get for a discounted rate at adobe.com. If you're not familiar, $20 a month, you can get all the Adobe software. It's a pretty good deal. You can get just Photoshop for like 10 bucks a month or something. But anyone in this area should have the Adobe suite. You should have that at home and be using it. If you don't want to buy that, make sure you can get into labs to use the software here. We will have lab times throughout the entire week. I'm on grounds all day Monday, Wednesday. I have classes in this room all day Monday, Wednesday. So if you needed to come in here and work, I'm fine with that as long as there's an opening, okay? Cinema 4D is available for a 18-month license. You go to that website, you can download the software. There's not going to be a huge difference between Mac and PC, so if you're comfortable with Mac, use Mac. If you're comfortable with PC, use PCs. I believe the version that we're using here is 17 or 18? 17. So we're using version 17 on grounds, I believe it is. So we'll be using Cinema 4D 17, so you'll download that and use that. They're on version 20, I think, now. Previous ones, yeah. I'll verify it before. Maybe we're on 19. This looks more familiar. Yeah, we're on 19. That looks better. Yeah, because I just downloaded 20. That was it. Yep. So we're on 19, not 17. And then Keyshot is only available in the lab. You can download a 15-day trial, but it's watermarked, so I wouldn't recommend using that. If you want to play with it and screw around with it, sure, but anything you create is going to have these ugly Keyshot watermarks all over it, so you wouldn't want to do a whole lot of work inside the software. So description, this is the beginning course for 3D animation using Cinema 4D. When I say 3D animation, it's a very loose term. It's kind of like Photoshop, right? So Photoshop can be used to draw stuff, it can be used to animate stuff, it can be used for photorealistic stuff, cartoony things. It's a very loose term. When we talk about 3D animation, we're basically just talking about 3D as a general term. We'll be building models in 3D, we'll be animating stuff, we'll be texturing stuff, rendering things out. So it's a lot of different things that we'll be doing inside of it. Some basic course objectives, we'll get more into those. For my assignment breakdown, we will have a hotkey and definitions test. These will happen about a month from now. So next class, I'll hand out the sheets for the hotkeys and the definitions, and then a month from now we'll have an actual test on each one of those. Our first assignment will be a mini room, basically just getting used to the interface. You'll find the interface in 3D is a lot different than the interface in any 2D app you've ever used. Does anyone have any 3D experience before this class? A little bit? Okay, what softwares? Blender? Maya? What was yours? Cinema 4D. Okay, good. So it's a good mix there. You'll find each of those softwares has their own strengths. Blender is used a lot by freelancers because it's free. Anyone can use it, anyone can make money off it. Cinema 4D is good for motion graphics. Maya is good for, like I said, movies and stuff. But anything can go kind of in between any of those tools. So just getting used to the 3D interface, that's what that first assignment is. And then we'll have a couple other assignments that basically build on top of each other until we get to our last project, which is this drone, which is going to be basically, we're going to be modeling a drone, texturing it, and then rendering that in KeyShot with some cool animation stuff. And it should look pretty photorealistic as long as we've done everything we need to up to that point. We'll also have a final exam. So you'll come in one day, here's the exam, and by the end of the class you'll create something. And then we'll have a final video as well, which is basically just a demo reel or a compilation of all the stuff that we did during the semester, okay? Usually a pretty easy assignment. All of my points add up to 100, so if for some reason you didn't do the drone assignment, then you would just not be able to get those 20 points for that assignment. So you'd basically be at an 80% in the class, okay? There's no averaging, you just strictly add up all those points. Anything over here is point deductions. So last semester I had a guy who he would text during my lectures and he lost points. And then he would work during my lectures and he would lose points. Don't do those things. I want to make sure that when you're here and I'm lecturing, it's for a purpose. It's not just for me to talk up here and avoid you guys. I want you to be engaged and understanding what we're doing, okay? Keys to success, showing up to class, each class on time and ready to work. Paying attention, taking notes, making sure you understand what's required, working during the class, doing homework, meeting deadlines, asking questions, and then pushing your skills. And then keys to failure, if you want to know how to fail. Missed classes, constantly being late, socializing, making up excuses why your work isn't done, guessing what's required, not taking notes, turning in work as you feel like it. So this is one, and I'm not sure why people do it, but there was a few times last semester where people would turn something in. Let's say I asked everyone to build a dog, and someone would turn in a giraffe. And I say, no, I want a dog. And they say, okay, well, here's a rabbit. I said, no, a dog. Like, you're not understanding this. And so just understanding, oh, a dog. You didn't have to build a giraffe and a cat. You could have just done a dog. We don't do a dog in this class, but just as an example. Cool. Questions on that part yet? Nothing. So this is the second part. And you can keep the extras back there, and I'll just collect them at the end. So the front page of this says, begin with the end in mind. So how many of you are still living at home? Everyone should be living at home, right? That's where your house is. How many people living at home with their parents? Let's go there. Okay, how many people want to not be living at home with your parents for the rest of your life? Good. Okay, so the end goal, not the very end, not death, but the end goal of our area is to give you the skills to get you a job that gets you to that point where you can move out of your parents' house and start your own life. I read an article the other day about millennials, which you guys kind of fit into that bunch, how their lives are starting later and later, and they define their life actually starting as that point of when they move out of their parents' house, when they have a job and they move out. So basically they're saying at 30 now is when people are moving out of their parents' house, not 22 or 23 before. So thinking about getting that job so that you can move out, you have to get the skills to get the job. So you always have to work backwards to get to that. This class will give you a set of skills that can take you to a job doing this kind of stuff, but it's up to you to put in the work to do that. I can be up here all day talking about 3D. I can talk for 25 classes of different 3D things that I know, and it won't do you any good unless you're actually applying those things and thinking about those things and building stuff to do that, okay? Lots of people go through not only this class, but every class at the college, and they go through the motions of the class. Maybe they get an A in the class, and then they forget all the stuff, And it was worth nothing. They get nothing out of that class because it was basically just for them to get an A on a piece of paper that they can show 20 years down the line, I got an A in this class 20 years ago, okay? So all the stuff we do here is for a reason, okay? Everything that we do builds to something better, builds to something more, and it also shows you different areas of 3D. The stuff up on the wall there, you'll see there's some 3D printed things. The bottom items, those are all mostly student work there. I have a couple pieces up there. The stuff on top is all 3D things that we've rendered out and done, but it's a variety of things. Some people who work in 3D, they may do products, they may do characters, they may do animation, they may do environments, they may do creatures, they may just do whatever. They may work in video games versus movies. They may work on app development versus something else. So it's a huge area, and so all the stuff that we do here applies across the board to all of those kinds of things, especially in this intro level class, okay? So that's the idea with what we're doing here, is to give you those skills to get to that point. All right, classroom policies. So provided the college is open, we will have class. So sometimes right before class, a student gets me in my office and says, hey, I need to talk to you. Sometimes it lasts for a half hour, and I'm not here right at 11 o'clock. That's no big deal. You stay in here and you work on your stuff, okay? We will have class regardless. Show up on time and start working. Don't leave early. You can read the rest of this. I'm just kind of skimming through it. You can make up absences by sitting in another class. So if Wednesday you don't happen to show up, you email me and say, hey, I can't be here Wednesday. My work called me in, blah, blah, blah. Monday you can come in and sit in one of my other classes and make up that absence. And the reason you would want to do that is because perfect attendance, right here, gets you 3 points in your final grade, okay? So that way you, number one, aren't falling behind because you missed a class, and number two, you're actually adding extra points to your grade. If you have 3 tardies, that equals an absence. 12 tardies equals 4 absences. More than 4 absences equals a failing grade. So don't get stuck in that area. Assignments need to be turned in on time and at least 75% completed. You'll find that we'll be able to work to a certain spot, and then we have to let the computers do the rest of the work. And that computer time doing the rest of the work could take a day or 2 days. Okay, so if we don't allow for that time to happen, we will have our stuff turned in late. But typically, as long as we have that first part done, we turn that in, then we won't be marked late, and then we won't get points deducted for turning our stuff in late, which is what the next part says, okay? Just to give you an example, this is here and here and here. This is something I rendered out over break. What time did I start this? So this is at 2:14 on 12:30. And it finished at 2:34, okay? So what did that take, like 20 minutes? That's not too bad. Here's when I started at 8:40. It was 8:40 in the morning. Yes, 8:40 a.m. And it finished, oh, there it is, 11:30 at night, okay? And those are simple things. Those are not like crazy complex things. So some of the stuff that we do in this class will take longer to do that, and we have to budget our time to make sure we allow for that stuff to happen. Also, we have to allow, we are going to screw things up. We are going to render things wrong. We're going to have our settings wrong. Hello, intro to 3D? Yes. Yep, take one of these and one of those. Thank you. So we have to make sure that we have our stuff, you know, ready to go, check it, and then we should be good. I attempt to record all my lectures. Sometimes what happens is the microphone cuts out, there's no audio, or the software just crashes and then we don't have the lecture. I always try to have a backup, but just in case, always take notes. And then obviously don't work during the lectures. Use the lectures also. Be professional. You're here to learn to be a productive member of society. Your behavior in class and communication should reflect that. If you shouldn't do something at work, don't do it here. Swearing, slacking, screwing around, disrespecting the room, equipment, and students is not allowed. Don't leave a mess. Don't spread germs. I shouldn't have to say this, but I do have to say it because I have to say it because people do it. If you bite your fingernails or you clip your nails, don't leave them at the desk. If you eat food in this class, which is not allowed, or you have wrappers or whatever, clean them up. If you sneeze into your hand, wash your hand. Don't touch the computer stuff after you've sneezed into your hand. If you go to the bathroom, wash your hands before you come back. Stuff I shouldn't have to say, but obviously I do. I have wipes up here. There's only one in this one, but I have another container in the back. I would recommend going to the Dollar Tree and getting your own. There's 60 of these in here, and magically we meet about 32 times, so that's plenty of time for you to use 2 of these per class if you really wanted to. I also have hand sanitizer right here you can use. For what it's Dollar Tree, so you have to pump it 75 times to get 1 squirt out. There's a student handbook, so whether you've read it or not, you've agreed to abide by it. Be respectful of the equipment, furniture, and students. These computers will need to last us another 5 years, so don't slam your chairs into them, don't put your USB drive into it, then knock the USB drive sideways so it breaks the port. Same thing with headphones. There's ports on the sides of the monitor, use those, okay? Remember, be professional. There's no eating in the classroom, no eating in the classroom. And again, something I have to put in here because people still think they can eat in the classroom. And eating is considered anything where you put food in your mouth and you chew it. That's eating. Like gum wouldn't be considered eating, but Snickers, Twix, candy, anything, eating. No eating. Doing the work. Anything you turn in that is not your work is considered plagiarism. And if you plagiarize someone else's work, you could be failing the assignment, failing the class, or even kicked out of the department or even the college if you're caught cheating. So it's definitely not worth it. These classes are very difficult to do that in because our stuff is you've created your own stuff. It's very difficult for someone else to turn it in and not be obvious that you've taken his stuff, okay? So make sure that whatever you're doing, you've done the work on it. Even having someone else do your work for you, like, hey, I don't know how to model this chair, and someone comes over and models a chair, well, that's their chair in your scene. You should not take that as your chair. You should model your own chair for the scene, okay? You're not learning anything if somebody else does the work for you. Your grade is your responsibility. In order to pass every class, every assignment must be turned in late or on time. For grades, my solid A is at 198. So just be aware that in order to get a solid A, you got to put in a lot of work to do that solid A. It's not impossible, people do it, but you just got to make sure that you're studying for your tests, turning in your work on time, and so on and so on and so on, okay? And I have this in here too, because people always ask, what do letter grades mean? An A represents outstanding, distinction, and excellence. They are not impossible to achieve, but are rare and difficult to come by. A B signifies a level of solid accomplishment and goodness. Good is more common than excellent, but more rare than average. While there is merit to hard work and long hours, it does not always guarantee success. You can read the rest of that. A C is average, common, adequate, but ordinary. It's usually not appealing to get a C in class, but obviously for an artist to strive to be extraordinary and unique, you have to push yourself harder than a C. Okay, C is average. If everyone in the class gets an A, then C does not exist. There is no average because now A is the average. So everyone should strive to get an A, but you may end up in the C spot if it just works out that way. D is where there becomes problems. It's basically you're just passing. Your priorities about school and life have not been established. Recognize that a D can also mean you truly don't understand what's expected. You should make an office appointment and discuss what you might need to do to take actions. And then E is a clear failure, represents a lack of effort/interest. It is a cause for deep concern. Typically, anyone who ever got an E in the class has done exactly that. They've neglected to turn in assignments, or they just decide not to turn in assignments, or they don't care about the assignments, they miss a bunch of classes. It's up to you. You get to pick where you end up on the spectrum. The harder you work, the higher you can get, right? My class is also designed that you can also turn stuff in again. So if I turn back an assignment and I say, your chair was not as good as it could be, here's some things to fix. And you fix all those things and you turn it back in, well, now you've raised your grade, okay? So I've designed it so you can get an A. It's possible to get for everyone in this class to get an A, but it just doesn't always happen, okay? What is the best way to reach me outside, or to reach me, period? Email. right? So if you need to contact me, email me. Can I bring food or beverage into class? You can bring beverages if they're sealed, right? So as long as it's sealed, there's a cover on top that closes somehow, you're good. No food at all whatsoever. Can I bring my own mouse or tablet in? Yep, you can bring your own mouse or tablet. Just don't disconnect the stuff that's already there. Push it away, and then just plug your stuff into the front here, or into the monitor. If you need special drivers, we can't do anything about that. So just be aware of that. Typically, people in the past who have used their own mice or keyboards, they've had no issues, okay? Just remember to take them with you, especially if they're a wireless mouse or keyboard or whatever. I want to work at home instead of coming in, or I want to leave early. Is that okay? It's fine if you want to do it. You just mark absent if you're not here, okay? Especially if you're sick. If you're like hacking up and just like horrible feeling at home, call in sick. Tell me you're not going to be here because you're not feeling good. And then make up the day if you want to. I want to make sure that you have every opportunity to get what you need out of the class. But obviously, if you're deathly ill, you really can't get anything out of the class. So you have four. What's that? Right, I don't want to get sick. I didn't turn in my work on time, but have a really good excuse. Can I still turn it in? Late, right? So you'll be docked 1 point per class or per week, okay? And if an assignment is only worth 5 points, you've already down to 4 if you turn it in 1 week late, or 3, or 2, or 1, right? Can I fix an assignment in to raise the grade? Yep. So if the way that I do my stuff, every assignment that you turn in will have a sheet that goes with it with the objectives and outcomes of what I want you to get out of the assignment. I'll grade your stuff. I'll return your sheets to you. And then if you decide you want to resubmit it, you'll turn that back into me resubmitting it. Now you have to do that within 2 weeks of turning it back to you, okay? Because if it goes longer than that, then people just forget about it and then you're not going to do it anyway. Frequently given excuses. So we'll start at the top and then you tell me what the solution is. So I forgot to do homework, study, or due dates. What's the solution? Turn it in late or? Don't forget, right? Take notes. Last semester, you will have a homework assignment for today. Last semester, I gave this, and about half of one of my classes didn't do it, like half of them. And I said, well, did you write it down? No, we didn't write it down. That's why you forgot. So write things down, put it in your phone. Whatever you need to do to remember to do your homework, okay? I didn't get the email. Check your email, right? It's a simple thing. When I send out an email, I'm only allowed to email through Canvas or email the email that's on file for you, okay? So if your email on MyMacomb goes to your parents' email account or your brother's or whoever's, that's the only one that I can send to. And if you don't check that one, you're not going to get the emails. So you should make sure on Canvas, you have it set up to go to your email. On MyMacomb, you have it set up to go to your email, okay? My computer or internet wasn't working. Find another one. What else? Let me know. Come into lab, right? If your computer isn't working, come into the lab and do work. Plan ahead. Sometimes your computer will not work, especially if an assignment is due. The last week of classes is usually when we have trouble. But if assignment is due, typically that's when more problems happen on computers. It's just the way it works. But plan ahead for these kinds of things. If you leave an extra week to kind of buffer yourself, you shouldn't have an issue. If your computer wasn't working today, maybe it'll work tomorrow, and then you won't be like crunched for time. I don't have the software at home. What would you do? Come to lab? What would you say? Yep, come here. Yep, come to lab. Download the software. It's free. Cinema 4D is free for 18 months. So there shouldn't be an excuse not to download it unless you don't have a computer, but then you have other stuff. I didn't understand what you wanted. Ask. It's simple stuff. Ask. If you're not sure what I want turned in, just ask. I'm not an ogre. People like to assume I am, though. I've never used a software or forgotten how to do something. Revisit the lecture. Yep. Or use YouTube. If you've forgotten how to do something from Illustrator or Photoshop, go to YouTube. How do I do this in Photoshop or Illustrator? I don't know what you don't know. What up? I don't remember stuff all the time, okay? Even in Cinema, I use Cinema 4D this semester. I'm using Cinema 4D, After Effects, Nuke, and Maya, and Photoshop and Illustrator and a bunch of other stuff. So even in those, I'll be like, okay, how do I do this in Cinema? How do I do this in Maya? How do I do it in After Effects or whatever? So I will constantly jump on YouTube or Google or whatever to find things out. But it's up to you to make sure that you know what you don't know and fill in all those holes, okay? I don't have time to work outside of class. Make time, right? Make time or don't take a class. If your schedule is so packed that you have zero time outside of these 3 hours twice a week, you will not be successful in this class, guaranteed, okay? This is not something where you will be able to do 100% of everything you need for this class in the class time that we have. So make sure you have time outside of class to work on stuff. I wasn't here last class/classes. Right. Contact me, let me know, check out what you missed. Am my file corrupted? Have a backup, right? And if you don't have a backup, you should have had a backup, and then what do? Start over. Suck it up and you start over, okay? Every time you save, just think about, do I want to have to redo that much more time? Cinema makes it very easy where you can increment and save. It's just a different hotkey. Instead of Control-S, it's Control-Shift-S, and then it just saves a different version. So you can save a different version every 20 minutes if you want. And the rule is you only save as often as you're happy or redoing that work. So if I save every 8 hours, then I'm accepting the fact that if my file crashes, I'm going to have to redo the last 8 hours of my work, okay? You don't want to have to do that. Cool. Any questions on that sheet? No, awesome. Grooving along. That one, that one. I have another sheet that I'm planned on handing out today, but the copy area, it's floating around the college somewhere being delivered, hopefully. So I'll have that for you next time, but I'll just go over it. It's probably the same thing you've seen before. It's this student agreement thing that we give out every semester. So welcome to winter 2019. With fall semester behind you, another semester moves forward. For some of you, this is your first semester. Some of you will be graduating. Among you are the future designers for branding and websites, animators, illustrators, editors, photographers, and videographers. While in class, you will learn the skills and techniques that can take you anywhere of your choosing. Past MACA students have and are working all over the world doing what you are training for here. A single class can take you far. Each semester brings you closer to making your vision a reality. There is no limit to where you can go or what you can do, except the one you place on it. Classes can take you only so far. You have to work in and out of classes to ensure you are using what you have learned. It's not enough to pass a class, you have to absorb and use the knowledge attained. If you took the time to learn Illustrator or Photoshop but don't use it regularly, you will forget it. Companies want students who are eager to learn, professional, creative, and skilled. You can't be only as good as your last classes. You have to be a culmination of your education inside and outside the classroom. If you've forgotten something, it's your job to relearn it. If you aren't creative, read a book, watch a video, do exercises. If you can't do something, find out how. Anything can be learned if given time. Use the next 17 weeks to obtain new skills, reinforce areas you have learned before, and find areas you need to improve. Okay, that's my motto for this semester. The first link that I have on the sheet is contact.sarcona.net. Last week I sent out an email saying, hey, classes are coming up, it's time to register, here's some additional information. If you didn't get that email, you're not on the list. So make sure you go to this thing, register your email account so that I can email you out when we have announcements like that. Sometimes we have presenters that come or presentations in other areas or events and happening at other schools. I like to be able to share that information because it's not, again, just about what you learn here, it's about what you learn outside the classroom as well, okay? So get on top of contact.sarcona.net. Vimeo.com/groups/MCCMACA. This is a group on Vimeo. And basically, current and past MACA students put their work up here. These are people who are past students, some are current students, working in industry, doing this kind of stuff. So if you're like, hey, what does it take to be a 3D modeler, animator, whatever in the industry? These are people doing it in the industry. These are people who at one point sat in these chairs and are now doing it out in the real world. So this is as close as you're going to get to being able to see this kind of stuff. The other intro to 3D class is taught by Billy. This is his demo reel. He's a motion designer, but he focuses mainly on 3D stuff using cinema. So there's his reel for doing motion graphics using cinema. And you can see he has a mix in here. Some of his pieces are very stylized, cartoony, yet at the same time kind of looking, realistic aspects to them. Also stuff like this, stuff like that, futuristic, kind of cool things, holograms, interfaces. These cool things here, vehicles. These things, more After Effects mixed with 3D. Okay, so that's a good way for you to say, hey, that's awesome. If you want to talk to Billy, he's open to talking to people. One of his pieces that he has here too, where did it go? Right there. So this thing called Mograph Mondays. Get to that in a minute. Mograph Mondays is an event that happens, that looks delicious, doesn't it? Which happens in Detroit. They used to do it every Monday, but I think they're doing it once a month on Mondays now. So it's Monday nights, so obviously you guys would be available for that if you don't have classes. But basically all these people get together and they just talk about Cinema 4D, After Effects, motion design. It's a great group of networking. It looks like the next one, it says, will be January 28th at Schoolcraft. So here's just people talking about their stuff. And then that's Billy there. The shave. And that's David. He was a student here. He taught advanced After Effects. And then they also show tutorials, demo reels. They do a whole bunch of different things. So if you're looking for a group of people to network for this kind of stuff, that's a great way to do that. Oops. That one, this one, there we go. Okay, so I recommend getting on there, becoming a member of that group, sharing your stuff, upload your work to those things. There's also an MCC MACA group on Facebook. If you go to Facebook, you search for that, it'll pull up one that has, again, students from this department posting stuff about jobs, posting stuff about tutorials, things happening in the industry, plugins, updates, whatever. Again, a great way to kind of network and resources for what we're doing. Behance.net, MotionSpire, and ArtStation, 3 great portfolio tutorial sites for you to be able to go out there and see what people are doing. If your vision is to not stay in Michigan and you want to go out and see what other people are doing in other areas of the world, this is where you would do it. Those people on there all over the world posting this kind of stuff. And so if you wanted to move to LA or Chicago or New York or whatever, those are areas you'll be able to see those people that are doing this stuff outside of Michigan. Their stuff is different than what we're doing here, slightly. They're just applying in a different form, but it's a good way to get out there. I do recommend you having your own Behance site and uploading your stuff, having your own Motion or ArtStation or any of these, and uploading your stuff. When you go and you apply for a job, you shouldn't have a portfolio online that was just built a week ago. You want to have something that's established, that has people who have gone to the site and have liked your pictures, or a network of people that have seen your work. Especially because it gets your work out there in the world, and so then people can see it, people can be inspired by it. You will grow as an artist just by putting your stuff out there. LinkedIn.com also is a great website. This is really good for creating basically, if you've never used LinkedIn, it's a online resume networking tool. Okay, so imagine Facebook, but professional. So you can put your picture, you can put information about you here, things that you specialize in, people who have viewed your profile you can see, and people, where you've shown up. It'll show, send you jobs, like here's a bunch of jobs that came up with your programmer qualifications. Here's my resume right there. Here's my education. Here's my endorsements. This is one of the better things, I think. If you put something in here like I know 3D, people that are in your network can say, yes, he does know 3D. Yes, they do know computer animation or art or graphics or any of this stuff. It used to be a lot more that they would show on here, or they would do it. Like every time you logged in, it would say, here's 4 people, what qualifications or skills do they have, and you could populate it. But it seems like they got away from that. You could also get recommendations. So if you have people that you've worked with, they can write you letters of recommendations right through here. So then anyone looking can find your stuff. Certifications, interests, any of that stuff, okay? So it's a great way to be able to create your own portfolio or your own resume out there and research people. So if I look for Detroit Cinema 4D, I'll find people who are in my network that are doing it, but I could also look for jobs that are using Cinema 4D in Detroit. Here's one for Icon Mobile. Here's one for Hook Studios. Here's one for CBS Corporation. This is in Chicago. Here's one for one in Florida. Detroit, Photoshop. And here's a bunch of jobs using Photoshop. So again, if I'm looking for jobs and I want to apply skills or use skills that I'm doing, there's a great way to do it. And if I see, like, okay, here's Quicken Loans. I have 9 connections in my network that currently work there. So I can talk to those people and say, hey, what's the status of this? How do I get applied? How do we get my name to the top of the list, right? So ask for a referral. So it's a great resource to do that. So again, I recommend you do that and start building up your network of people that you know. It'll only help you in the end. Okay, improving your work skills. I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but I'll read these things. These are the ways to improve how you work. Being punctual, being prepared, being accountable, working hard, being committed, having a great attitude, paying attention, and being helpful. All of these things are things that I do and have seen that help people improve their work skills. Improving your learning skills. So how we learn stuff, how we take information and process it and be able to apply it. Understanding your learning style, understanding how you learn things best. Some people need to read about it. Some people need to see it done. Some people need to do it. In this area, typically we all have to do it, but it's a matter of maybe I need to read about the stuff more so I understand it better. So it might be, if you got that Cinema 4D book, reading a chapter is a lot more beneficial or helps you understand the stuff better than just watching me do the stuff inside of Cinema, okay? So that might be something that you want to adapt so that you can learn the stuff better. Getting enough sleep. If you're falling asleep during class, that doesn't help you. Eating a healthy diet. If you feel like crap, then that's definitely not going to help you. Exercising. Spending even a few minutes before class instead of just like sitting around. If you were to do a couple laps around the building, that creates more oxygen into your brain, which makes you more alert, which makes you more able to take in the information. Meditating to help you clear your brain, focus on what you need to, practicing instrument or foreign language, drawing or doodling, and then keeping an open mind. Those are all things that help you become a better learner. The attendance policy for MECA, this class will meet 17 weeks with the break. You're allowed 4 absences. Doesn't mean you get 4 absences that just like take off whenever you want, like sick days. They're basically just like 4 absences in case you need them. I typically am not sick too often. Of course, I am this week, but I still made it in, and I'm staying away from everyone. But just don't miss days if you don't need to. That doesn't apply to us. If you are going to be absent, let me know. Shoot me an email, say you're not going to be here, whatever it is. That way at least you know what we're missing. Equipment loan. So there's no equipment for this specific class that we would be loaning out, with the exception of tablets. Okay, so if during class you want to use a tablet, we get to a part where you want to paint something for a texture or whatever, we have tablets we can let you borrow during class. Then you just return them before class is over. So we'll have those, just don't break them. Usage of hardware in classrooms. Like I said, don't smack the computers, break them. Don't save work to the desktop because that, when you reboot, it's gone. We'll go over that again next class. Don't work off the servers. Don't save stuff to the computer unless you have it saved 10 other spots. No eating in classes. Yeah, that should be good there. All right, so I'll give you that when I get the actual handouts. And then the last thing I want to go over is the calendar. So in front of you is a calendar. This is a good way to write down like your to-dos. Like for next class, this is what you have to do, right? So it's a good way to put that on there. So I would keep that handy, keep that with you every day. The last day for refunds for this class is the 13th. So after today and next class, you decide this isn't for me, I don't want to do this, make sure you get your refund. After that day, you don't get money back. It's just a drop. MLK Day on the 21st, we have no school, so we will not be here that day. We will be here on that Wednesday, though. And then we have a very, very long time. If you do decide you want to withdraw from this class, April 1st is the first day to or the last day to withdraw. So if halfway through the class you realize this isn't for me, I want to get out, make sure you withdraw from the class and just don't stop showing, or don't start not showing up, or don't stop showing up. Don't stop showing up, that's the one. Otherwise, you will get a failing grade and not a W. And a W will look better on your transcript if you transfer somewhere than an E will look, okay? So make sure you withdraw from a class if you decide you want to. Spring registration also begins that day. Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, and photography are typically the 4 classes we offer during the summer. Most people that's not affected by at this level. So if it does affect you, then you would be paying attention to that date. So we have classes basically after Martin Luther King all the way until the 15th. That's the day we're making up for missing Martin Luther King Day. We have this week off, the rest of that week. We come in on the 22nd. The 24th is our final exam. Everything is due on the 24th. On the 29th is our demo reel viewing day. So the demo reels you make, we watch on the 29th, and then we are done. So we will be basically done for this class before May 1st, okay? So this semester is going to be a weird one because we're not really going to get a break until the very end, and then it's basically a week before we would be out anyway. So just be aware of that, okay? Any questions on the calendar? No? All right. So what I want you to do before next class is I want you to log into Canvas. I want you to go to the discussion board, and I want you to reply to these 2 discussions. Each one of those has a list of questions, so you'll reply in complete sentences, and you'll have these things that you will answer inside of that. And the same thing here for demo reels. You'll go and find a demo reel on Vimeo, share the link, talk about why you like the link, answer those questions below it. Okay, so before next class, do that. Before next class, right? Not during. Cool. Any questions? No? All right.